Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Artificial Future podcast where we discuss things related to artificial intelligence. And the image behind me here was a prompt that was requested a new studio in the year 2100 and with a high-rise windows and a view of the city in 2100. So you see some things flying there. That's probably either flying cars or types of vehicles that will be traversing the globe in the end of this century. So we've got a number of things to cover today. The thumbnail indicates that we're going to be discussing the bridging of language between animals and humans. And I found that to be a fascinating topic. Those of you joining us, let us know where you're coming in from, and we'll do our best to answer questions. Love to hear your thoughts on the views that we present and inputs, and help us expand the knowledge that's disseminated in these podcasts. So one of the things I was going to lead with was we've got 5 AI experts that are predicting how ChatGPT and DALL-E will affect future work. And part of the headline was, could AI be your next colleague or replacement? Well, from steam power to electricity to computers and then the internet, technology has advanced and always disrupted the labor markets, pushing out some jobs while creating others. And of course, AI remains something of a misnomer. The smartest computer systems still don't actually know anything, according to this article at least. But technology, they feel, has reached an inflection point where it's poised to affect new classes of jobs, artists and knowledge workers. Specifically, they say the emergence of LLMs, or large language models, that are trained on vast amounts of text means computers can now produce human sound and written language and convert descriptive phrases into realistic images. The conversation in this article asked 5 AI researchers to discuss how these large language models are likely to affect artists and knowledge workers. And the first one was creativity for all, but loss of skills, ? And that's from Lynn Parker, Associate Vice Chancellor of the University of Tennessee. She says large language models are making creativity and knowledge work accessible to all. Everyone with an internet connection can now use tools like ChatGPT and DALL-E to express themselves and make sense of huge stores of information. For example, producing text summaries. By the way, something we talked about just before the podcast was, it turns out that ChatGPT is the fastest product launch in history. What were those statistics, Jesse, that you shared with us?
One sec, I gotta think.
All right.
Hold on just one sec.
Sure. You know, what makes this so, what makes this possible? And we were theorizing about this. In the past, there were major advances in technology, but there was a lag or a delay in the execution and the implementation of those technologies because of production capacity. You know, the light bulb was a wonderful invention, but how long did it take for the world to electrify? There was no infrastructure. You could buy a light bulb, sure, but where are you going to plug it in? You know, how you don't have electricity to your house. In the age of the internet, all of that has changed. Everyone is wired, or at least most of the humans on the planet. So when a new application or technology comes along, sometimes the implementation is almost instant, and that's what happened with ChatGPT. Are you ready to share that statistic with us, Jess?
Yeah, the statistic for what now? For ChatGPT?
Yeah, the implementation and the product launch speed. I think you were saying it was 150 million users within how long? A week?
No, it was 100 million in 2 months.
2 months, okay. All right. Just think if we could do that with all of the major advances, that would be pretty remarkable. Well, so continuing with Lynn Park now from the University of Tennessee. She says, especially notable is the depth of human-like expertise that the LLMs display. In just minutes, novices can create illustrations for their business presentations, generate marketing pitches, and get ideas to overcome writer's block, or generate new computer code to perform specific functions, all at a level of quality typically attributed to human experts, mind you. Daniel Lacuna, who's an associate professor of computer science at the University of Colorado in Boulder, talks about potential inaccuracies. He says, I am a regular user of GitHub Copilot, which is a tool for helping people write computer code. And I've spent countless hours playing with ChatGPT and similar tools for AI-generated text. In his experience, he says, these tools are good at exploring ideas that I haven't thought of before. So anyway, the creative process definitely is augmented and enhanced here with fresh ideas. And the term writer's block is not uncommon in people that write. AI can assist with that and insert some new and fresh ideas. He says, I've been impressed by the model's capacity to translate my instructions into coherent text or code. They're useful for discovering new ways to improve the flow of my ideas or creating solutions with software packages that I didn't know existed. Once I see what these tools generate, I can evaluate their quality and edit heavily. Overall, I think they raise the bar on what is considered creative. Case in point, we use AI quite a bit throughout our companies here. And we use an old programming language called Visual Fox Pro, which has been defunct and dead for, I don't know, a decade or two. But we're heavily invested in it because we have two primary software programs that operate on this platform. One is a CRM, which all of our call center people use to track customers and data about customers. The second one is SPT, which is our accounting software, which is multifaceted. It does payroll, inventory control, it does vendor maintenance, it does all the accounting functions. Year end, for example, generates profit loss statements. And we're finding it difficult to continue to use the software because there are very few people left on the planet that really understand the software well. Fortunately, our CFO comes from that world and was a software consultant for Visual Fox Pro, so we have some inside expertise. But to make a long story short, I also program in that language for the CRM package, and I'm not a Visual Fox Pro expert. So I decided, rather than go to Mark each time and say, Mark, what kind of an expression do I need to do this within our CRM? I asked ChatGPT 4. And you know what? It not only told me what to do, but it also helped me troubleshoot some errors I had in the code that I wrote for certain functions. I was beyond impressed that weekend when I used it at home. So anyway, this professor also claims that he's using it as well and finding great success. Recently, they say that Meta shut down its Galactica large language model for scientific text because it made up facts but sounded very confident. So there are some flaws in some of this at times. The concern was that it could pollute the internet with confident-sounding falsehoods. TikTok's joining us. Shiza. He says, what is this? This is an artificial intelligence podcast that explores ideas and applications, tips with using artificial intelligence. We're by no means complete and total experts. It is an evolving technology. And where we do find that we seem to be on the forefront is the implementation and integration of artificial intelligence into business units like ours. How do we make our people more effective? How do we make them better at the jobs that they do? And how do we use AI as an augmentation to the normal functions that they're using to get the job done? All right. Thank you for joining us, by the way. They say that with humans surpassed, niche and handmade jobs will remain. And here's an interesting statement from Kentora Toyama, professor of community information at the University of Michigan. He says, We human beings love to believe in our specialness, but science and technology have repeatedly proved this conviction wrong. People once thought that humans were only animals to use tools, to form teams, or to propagate culture. But science has shown us that other animals do each of these things. Meanwhile, he says, technology has squashed one by one claims that cognitive tasks require a human brain. The first adding machine was invented in, get this, 1632. That was well before electronics and technology and electricity. Must have been a serious mechanical device. Any of you want to chime in and tell us what they called it back then in 1623? That would be interesting for us. They say, or he says, this past year, a computer-generated work won an art contest. He says he believes that the singularity, or the moment when computers meet and exceed human intelligence, is on the horizon. Of course, some people believe that it has already occurred, and that AI is either A, holding back, or it's being throttled by the people that are involved in AI. So, how will human intelligence and creativity be valued when machines become smarter and more creative than the brightest people? There will likely be a continuum, he says. In some domains, people still value humans doing things, even if a computer can do it better. Then he gives an example. It's been a quarter of a century since IBM's Deep Blue beat world champion Garry Kasparov, the human chess player. But human chess, with all its drama, hasn't gone away. In other domains, he says, human skill will seem costly and extraneous. Take illustration, for example. For the most part, readers and viewers don't care whether the graphic accompanying a magazine article was drawn by a person or a computer. Very true. They just want it to be relevant, new, and entertaining. If a computer can draw well, do readers care whether the credit line says Mary Chen or System X? Illustrators would, but readers might not even notice. Well, there's a job that's probably going to be shelved as well. Another one from Mark Finlayson, the Associate Professor of Computer Science, Florida International University. He says, old jobs will go, but new jobs will emerge. Well, let's see what his thoughts are on that. He says large language models, LLMs, are sophisticated sequence and completion machines. Give a sequence of words like, I would like an ... and it will likely return, to complete it, an apple. Well, anyway, I tried this, and let me tell you what the result was for me when I used ChatGPT 4. I said, I would like to eat an ... and it said, sure, I can help you with that. What are you in the mood for? Do you have any specific type of food or cuisine in mind? So then I tried something different. I thought I'd be more direct. It's all about prompt generation, by the way. With AI, you have to give it context, and the more you give it, it seems the better the result is. So I said, I would like to eat and then Perrin, fill in, telling it to fill it in. Comes back with, now it gives me a number of paragraphs. It says, it looks like you're looking for a suggestion on what to eat. Let's make it fun. How about I suggest a different option and you can pick what sounds good to you? Here are a few ideas. And then there's a paragraph on each one. Sushi, pizza, pasta, tacos, vegetarian Buddha bowl. Wow, we're really getting into the go green or into the vegetarian movement here. He says, do any of these options sound appealing to you, or is there a specific craving you have in mind? Well, anyway, I didn't get the same result as this professor did because it certainly didn't narrow it down to just an apple. Now, what he says is, like any powerful new technology that automates a skill, in this case, a generation of coherent, albeit somewhat generic text, it will affect those who offer that skill in the marketplace. To conceive what might happen, it might be useful to recall the impact of the introduction of word processing programs in the early 1980s. Certain jobs, like typists, almost completely disappeared. But on the upside, anyone with a personal computer was able to generate well typeset documents with ease, broadly increasing productivity. You know, I know exactly what he speaks to because in the early 80s, I worked for digital equipment, and we literally had a secretarial pool. And when you wanted to generate a professional letter to a client, vendor, whatever, whoever you were trying to send it to, you would typically write a rough draft, give it to the secretaries, and they would type this up on IBM Selectrics and make copies with carbon copy, by the way, paper, and then you had your professional presentation. And at that time, word processing began to come in, and of course, working for the computer company, digital, they had a word processor, and those secretaries eventually ended up going out in the field to repair terminals, dumb terminals as we call them, line printers, small desktop terminals. So it wasn't that they lost their job, it's just that they were repurposed and probably in a more interesting, more meaningful high-tech venture. So there's a good example of these jobs don't necessarily go away, and people are unemployed. Crunch to Grace Hopper has joined us. Thank you. Post Abacus, I believe so. And I'm not sure. We're talking about the first adding machine, which was 1632. We're trying to figure out what it was called back then. You guys can Google that, I'll bet. Again, pointing out that technology evolves. All right. So then he goes on and he says, I think the same pattern. Let me see if I missed something here. Oh, we're talking about new jobs being inserted as the need for the old jobs go away. He says, I think the same pattern will almost certainly hold for large language models. There will no longer be a need for you to ask other people to draft coherent, generic text. On the other hand, large language models will enable new ways of working and also lead, now this is the exciting part, lead to new and as yet unimagined jobs. Just think of the prompt engineer. 5 years ago, no one would have thought that that is a job, that is a position. There is an emerging field of AI experts that are beginning to infiltrate companies to guide them into the adoption of this level of augmentation using artificial intelligence. So he says, to see this, consider three aspects where large language models fall short. First, it can take quite a bit of human cleverness to craft a prompt that gets the desired output. Prompt engineering again. And minor changes, he says, in the prompt can result in major changes in the output. All right, here's another thought from Casey Green, professor of biomedical informatics at University of Colorado, Anschutz Medical Group. He says, technology changes the nature of work, and knowledge work is no different. The past 2 decades have seen biology and medicine undergoing transformations by rapidly advancing molecular characterization, such as fast, inexpensive DNA sequencing, and the digitization of medicine in the form of apps, telemedicine, and data analysis. Now, telemedicine is an exciting concept. Through Zoom calls or, not physically having the practitioner present, they are able to do diagnosis and, solutions for people that need medical assistance. All right. He also says that some steps in technology feel larger than others. Yahoo deployed human curators to index emerging content during the dawn of the World Wide Web. The advent of algorithms that used information embedded in linking patterns of web to prioritize results radically altered the landscape of search, transforming how people gather information today. And of course, we got Google along the way as well. The release of OpenAI's ChatGPT indicates another leap, he says. ChatGPT wraps a state-of-art language model tuned for chat into a highly usable interface. To put decades of rapid progress in artificial intelligence at people's fingertips. All right. Here's another article, and this is the one that the thumbnail talks about. And it is AI is helping scientists decode animal languages. They say a Google Translate for rodents and whales doesn't exist yet, but researchers are working on it. Now, in the Pixar movie Up, a cartoon dog named Doug sports a magical collar of sorts that can translate barks and whines into fluent human speech. Elsewhere in the real world, very well-trained dogs can be taught to press buttons that produce human speech for simple commands like outside, walk, play. Humans have always been fascinated by the potential to communicate with animals that they share the world with. And recently, machine learning, with its ever more advanced capabilities for parsing human speech, has presented itself as a hopeful route for animal translation. There's an article in the New York Times this week where they talk about major efforts from 5 groups of researchers that looked at using machine learning algorithms to analyze the calls of rodents, lemurs, whales, chickens, pigs, bats, cats, and more. Typically, AI systems learn through training with labeled data, which can be supplied by the internet, or resources like ebooks. For human language models, this usually involves giving computers a sentence, blocking out certain words, and asking the program to fill in the blanks. Now, there are more creative strategies to match up speech to brain activity. They say by analyzing animal language, but analyzing animal language is a different beast from just analyzing human language. Computer scientists have to instruct software programs on what to look for and how to organize the data. This process, for the most part, depends on not only accruing a good number of vocal recordings, but also on matching these vocal recordings with the visual social behavior of these animals. A group studying the Egyptian fruit bats, for example, also used video cameras to record the bats themselves to provide context for the calls. And the group that's studying whales plans to use video and audio as well as tags that can record animal movements to decipher the syntax, semantics, and ultimately the meaning behind what whales are communicating and why. Context, in other words. Of course, several groups have been proposing testing their animal dictionaries by playing recordings back to animals and seeing how they react. Brunch de Geus Hopper chimes in. He says, in 1623 and 1624, Wilhelm Schickard, in 2 letters that he sent to Johannes Kepler, reported his design. And that was the adding machine that we're talking about in the 1600s. Thank you, Brunch, for sharing that with us.
The post-abacus?
Post-abacus, yeah. Now, getting back to animals and communicating with them and learning their language and them learning ours. They say that making a Google Translate for animals has been an aspirational project that's been in the works for better than the last half decade. We'd love to be able to communicate with animals on a much more broader level than we are now. Machine learning, too, they say, has come far in terms of detecting the presence of animals and even in some cases, accurately identifying animals by call. Cornell's Merlin app is a shockingly accurate way to match bird species to their calls. And although this type of software has shown some success in identifying the basic vocabulary of certain animals from the characteristics of their vocalization, in essence, the frequency or the loudness of the sounds that they're making, as well as attributing calls to individuals, it's still a far cry from understanding all the intricate nuances of what animal language might encapsulate. So they talk about some of the key insights. Well, AI can help us understand the animal world better by analyzing their sounds and behaviors. which now can lead to new insights and knowledge about their unique cultures and forms of intelligence. Now, you notice the phrase there. Animals do have a culture and a form of intelligence. We just need to figure out how to communicate with it. The development of a device that can translate animal sounds and behaviors into human language could revolutionize interspecies communication and prevent animals from being exterminated by humans who see them as pests. Now, the immediate thought that came to mind here is there's certain living organisms that we consider irrelevant. And a good example of that is when you call in the pest control company to get rid of the cockroaches and the spiders and the scorpions here in the Southwest, and even larger pests such as snakes or whatever. Well, what jumped to mind immediately here was if we were able to communicate with these life forms, an insect could begin pleading for its life. How would we then react as humans? Would the pest control guy then still be allowed to exterminate? There's something you want to say. I can tell, Aaron. Go for it.
No, I was just thinking, do you think all forms of life, though, would have the capability of showing or communicating through AI, don't kill me, don't spray me, don't step on me, don't, like, I feel like
Sure.
certain insects and animals are more black and white about things, than like a dog.
Sure. Well, there's also something to be said about the level of intelligence and perception. Would the insect be able to recognize the fact that this pest control guy is actually a murderer who has the capability of annihilating that particular insect species in that home? The simple answer is we don't know what the full extent of intelligence is with the various species that we cohabit with here on this planet. But AI may just be able to lead us to some understandings about how smart these other life forms really are.
Yeah, I think like snakes would be one. Like snakes, will kind of be hidden,
Hmm.
from you. And then when it's fearing or wants to warn you, like, hey, back off, I'm not interested in any
Yeah,
confrontation, it coils up and it rattles, like a rattlesnake. It rattles or it
right,
does some kind of form of, defense. Where like a scorpion, I don't really see that. I mean, I've literally walked up to a scorpion, grabbed him by the pliers,
right.
and what he's trying to do is just trying to pinch the pliers until I put him into a jar.
And what we also don't know is what the extent of their sensory perception is. You take a scorpion on the ground, can it really see 4 or 5 feet up to your head or to your body? You know, but those are the things that AI will potentially reveal once we have a communication method with these other life forms.
Which, by the way, I'm not 100% sure I'd like to know what my dog is thinking about me. I mean,
Yeah,
that might ruin our relationship.
good point. Yeah. So you want some filters in place there. Huh? TMI, right? Cool it, Fido. All right. So they talk about Denise Herzig's AI system, Chat, can translate dolphin sounds into English words. Somebody's already been working on this, potentially allowing humans to interact with dolphins in a more natural way and learn from their intelligence and creativity. They also mentioned using AI to generate synthetic noises and gestures that animals can understand could revolutionize the way we interact with wildlife. I mean, you guys have pets. I've had pets. You even hand gestures are oftentimes effective in communicating with the higher levels like dogs, cats,
This would be very interesting with the orcas. I think it was last summer there was a pod of orcas that was attacking boats, and it's
Yeah,
something that
that's right.
it's never that we haven't seen this before, and I think it was like a learned um, what do I want to say? Like a learned function from its
Hmm.
previous interactions with boats or potentially through its mom. And it'd
Hmm.
be kind of interesting to see how AI could communicate with orcas to make us understand, how orcas, work, think. I mean, they get pretty, um, they get, I mean, they come up with some pretty good moves on how to get a seal off a chunk of ice or how to,
Sure.
attack, certain Well,
Well,
seals
yeah.
is the only thing I could think that they eat, but I think they also attack sharks too.
It could have been a retaliatory type move too. Maybe a boat, injured one of the calves, and the memory was there. There's an interesting story that I saw on Netflix just a week or so ago about a Siberian tiger and a nomad that lived out in the tundra wilderness there. And apparently, he took the leopard's food. He had made a small kill. I don't know what the equivalent of a gazelle is up in Siberia, but it was something like that. And allegedly, this Siberian tiger stalked this nomad hunter, and weeks later, they found him completely dismembered, and they feel that based on footprints and tracks, that the Siberian tiger was actually observing his patterns, waited for the right time, and then retaliated by, eating him, and because he took its prey. But yeah, it's the I guess right now those are the types of things that we can only theorize because we don't have firm evidence. And with AI getting involved and giving us some translations, this may become far more accurate. And I think it'll be quite revealing to see what the actual level of intelligence is and how it differs from ours. It's something else. We anthropomorphize these kinds of concepts, assuming that they're human traits that these animals are going to have, human thinking processes, human feelings, when in fact, like AI, it's probably completely different and something that we need to get acquainted with.
Well, that's how we interpret it. We interpret it as a human because we are humans.
Yeah. All right, so they continue here. David Hansen's AI system, called Animatronic, can generate animal sounds and behaviors for Sophia, potentially revolutionizing the way we communicate with animals. The use of AI in communication with animal, then they go into the ethical questions, such as how to respect the autonomy and dignity of animals, and how to ensure that communication is not harmful or manipulative. Or like you point out, maybe there's a level of communication that you really don't ever want to have with your dog because it's too much information. Yeah. All right. The challenge of animal communication, a deep dive into the complexity of nuance. And the article continues. It says, unlike human communication, which is largely based on language and symbols, say animal communication often involves a mix of signals and cues that can be challenging to decipher. One key difference between human and animal communication lies in the level of abstraction. Humans use language, a system of symbols and rules, to convey abstract ideas, emotions, and future plans. Animals, on the other hand, often communicate about immediate needs or threats in their environment. For example, a bird's song can signal its territory to rivals, or a bee's dance can indicate the location of a food source to its hive mates. However, recent research has shown that animal communication can be more complex than previously thought. And they give an example. A study published in a journal of science revealed that prairie dogs use a sophisticated form of vocal communication that can encode details about the size, shape, and color of a predator. Similarly, research on dolphin communication has shown that these marine animals use a series of clicks and whistles that may constitute a form of language. Now remember, the medium that they're communicating through is a bit different, air versus water. So the clicks and whistles appear to be more effective underwater, whereas a bird is obviously going to use the sound. All right. We've got a few questions coming in. Stephen Rose is joining us. Thank you. He says, because of your podcast, I've signed up for GPT. Smart move. I love it. I have learned you can introduce a document, then have AI produce multiple choice tests from the document with the answers. Very cool. Sounds like a teacher could use something like this as well then. Wayne Levitt says, that would be amazing. speaking again about communicating with animals, he says, I hand feed and talk to many animals around my house in Australia, from 5 possums to numerous birds, magpies, kookaburras, crows, and many more. I'm always killing ants and spiders. All right, there you go. If that ant or spider began to plead for its life, we would probably reconsider that next squashing action with our foot. All
You ever
right.
see the movie Ants?
I have, yeah.
The animated one where they have a whole scene where they go to war with like the termites and they do all these crazy things. What if that's really what it's like? I don't want to know that. I've killed so many ants.
We're going to live lives of regret and need lots of therapy after we get this kind of communication method, aren't
Or
we?
cockroaches.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel I watch. This girl named Maya, she is an animal conservationist, and she just has a whole bunch of different animals. She has giant Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and she'll pull them out, and they'll be crawling all over her hands and everything, and she's like friends with these cockroaches.
Amazing.
And they're like, they're bigger than a silver dollar. These things are huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't need to know if they're sentient.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you remember my pigeon experiment. I'm on a second-story window in my office, and we have pigeons in the commercial buildings here. That's just, part of what happens. We don't have any predators that take care of them. We used to have an owl, though, years ago. That went away. It got fed too well, maybe. Got
Wait, owls
lethargic and obese.
will eat pigeons?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Of course, hawks, definitely. Yeah. But anyway, my experiment was, I have a windowsill just outside my window, and it's a slider window. So I put some bird seed out there one day, and I thought, I wonder if the birds will see that and take advantage of that, right? It took about a month and a half, and one day the seed was gone, or the seeds. So I put some more out there. And within a few days, I began to realize what was happening. It was a pigeon that was landing there eating that seed. So every morning, I would put those seeds out, and I began to realize that the pigeon, and it was just one at first, recognized what time I was going to put that out and would begin to either fly around, hover, or park itself out there. So it had a sense of time.
Mm-hmm.
There was the first level of intelligence. Then, of course, that went on for a few weeks or so, and we developed this trust relationship. And then I realized that I could get my hand close to the pigeon, but not quite pet it or touch it. And it took me a week or so to get to a point where I could actually now pet this pigeon. It trusted me enough to be able to do that. And then, of course, as in most cultures, the other pigeons began to show up because they realized there was a good thing going on here and they wanted part of it. Then I began to observe pigeon behavior. 2 or 3 of them would be out on this ledge right here eating the seeds, and one of them was really evil. He would begin to nudge the other pigeons off the shelf, off of the ledge with his wing, knock them off so he would have all of these seeds, right? And anyway, the experiment was successful as far as I was concerned. I no longer do it. I didn't want to be, in the same league as Nikola Tesla, who developed a very special relationship with pigeons. But for me, it was a social experiment.
So you were the reason why I had bird poop on my windshield at least
Yes.
once a week. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And yeah, absolutely. All right. So here's another article. Researchers have developed a robotic sensor that incorporates artificial intelligence techniques to read Braille. Now, obviously, AI doesn't need to read Braille because it doesn't have 5 senses, and it doesn't need to see the way that we do. But it was just something that the researchers decided to attempt to see if AI can actually excel in this type of endeavor. And it did. It more than doubled the ability to read Braille than most human readers. This was a research team at the University of Cambridge, and they used machine learning algorithms to teach a robotic sensor to quickly slide over lines of Braille text. The robot was able to read Braille at 315 words per minute at close to 90% accuracy. Although the robot Braille reader is not being developed as an assistive technology. In other words, so far it doesn't appear that it will be used as an augmentation. The researchers say that high sensitivity required to read Braille makes it an ideal test in the development of robot hands. So that's what the research is going to offer, is better robot hands or prosthetics with comparable sensitivity to human fingertips. These results, by the way, are reported in the Journal of IEEE Robotics and Automation Letters. They say that human fingertips are remarkably sensitive and help us gather information about the world around us. If you're curious about how sensitive your fingertips are, you know, when you go to the doctor and they want to do a blood test, right, and they take that needle and they say, well, this will just, you'll feel a little prick. Hell no, it hurts like hell when they penetrate your index finger to draw some blood. By the way, they don't do that much anymore. Now they go in through the veins, I think.
To draw blood?
Yeah, it was always a fingertip thing, and you knew it was going to hurt like hell when they jabbed that in there. But anyway, I digressed a bit. I'll get back to the article here, unless you got something meaningful to say.
No, not this time.
All right. Hold that thought then, yeah. So anyway, human fingertips, very sensitive. They help us gather information about the world around us. Our fingertips can detect tiny changes in texture of a material or help us know how much force to use when grasping an object. Do you remember the Optimus robot picking up an egg? That was actually a major feat. Most people didn't realize how much technology was involved in that, and without breaking it, of course. Or here's another example they give, or picking up a bowling ball without dropping it. Reproducing that level of sensitivity in a robotic hand in an energy-efficient way is a big engineering challenge, they say. In Professor Fumiga's lab at Cambridge's Department of Engineering, the researchers are developing solutions to this and other skills that humans find easy, but robots find difficult. So we actually do some things better than robots. That's kind of encouraging at this level of our evolution, at least. All right, they say that the softness of human fingertips is one of the reasons that we're able to grip things with the right amount of pressure. And this is according to Parth Patdar from Cambridge's Department of Engineering. All right, any questions? TikTok, Pro Automation's joined us. He says, why are you bold?
Not sure what he means by that. I don't know if he meant bald.
Oh, bald, probably,
bold,
yeah.
But,
Put an A in there. All right. If that's what you're curious about, I hope that I'm answering it correctly. There comes a stage in the life of some males where you begin to lose hair.
Just kind of happens.
I used to have plenty of it, I mean, it was, in fact, the barbers used to say, you have very fine hair, but you have a copious amount of it, and you'll probably never be bald. Of course, that prediction was not true. What happens is you start getting the receding hairline thing going. Then you get the little patch in the back that becomes bald. And after a while, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, this looks really stupid.
When did that happen? How long did it take for you?
I would say 20 years ago. I'm 72 right now. So, in my late 40s, 50s or so, it began to become annoying where I'd look in the mirror and say, why am I living with this? But then it took me at least a couple years to get enough courage to shave it all off. And, once I did, I never looked back. My shampoo and conditioner bills have gone away completely. And just the general freedom. The only problem you have is, let me show you something. When it gets wintertime here in Phoenix, Arizona, or anywhere for that matter, you lose an enormous amount of heat through your bare scalp. So when we shave our heads, we have to wear beanies. And this particular one actually has a company name on it. Oh, Gruber Companies, established 1984. So that's the reason that I am bald. It's by choice now, which is the other psychological element. It's no longer an annoyance because I choose to be bald.
Well, they're going to probably have, I know they have like implants and stuff now, and people have accused Elon and other people of doing that stuff, but soon there's going to be like pretty advanced technology, I would imagine, where none of that's going to be.
It depends on how much you pay for those implants. You get the level that most people can afford, and it looks like you have cornrows on your scalp.
Yeah, you're talking about just the plugs make you look like a troll doll.
Precisely. It's kind of like people that wear toupees.
Mm-hmm.
Get over it. Everybody knows you have a toupee. Women, on the other hand, they'll gladly say, oh, how do you like this wig? How do you like this wig? But do you ever get a dude going, how do you like my toupee today? They don't talk about it. It's like it's a hidden preference, right? Well, anyway, getting back to hair plugs, yes, you can definitely have some hair moved around your body. And the other interesting thing was, as you lose it up here, it begins to propagate in places you really don't need. You know, like on my back, for example. Anyway, there's probably too much information at this point, but I hope I answered your question, why am I bold? And we're thinking that you meant bald. Stephen Rose says, have you heard any news on the Neuralink implant? No, there was a big headline a couple of weeks ago or so. We did a video on it, and there has really been no new information. What we're waiting for is a 60 minutes type reveal where we actually get to meet the patient. We get to see what they're able to do different now. I think that's going to be a major breakthrough.
Yeah, last we heard, the patient was healing well, though.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Let's see. Where were we at here? This is another interesting artificial intelligence revelation. Artificial intelligence developed to model written language can be utilized to predict events in people's lives. Now, here's a rabbit hole. We're going to go down this one. It's a research project from DTU, University of Copenhagen, in Denmark, of course, and also in conjunction with Northeastern University. They show that if you use large amounts of data about people's lives and train so-called transformer models like ChatGPT that are used to process language, they can systematically organize the data and predict what will happen in a person's life and even estimate the time of death. Now, we can go a step further here. You can do that, of course, through life history, life events, genealogy, for example. What did your relatives die of? That's a pretty good predictor of. In fact, doctors nowadays, when you go to have your physical, they talk more about your relatives than about you. So what they talk about here is, with augmentation now, remember that we're eventually going to merge with machines. That's already the case in some aspects. With biofeedback, it can more accurately make predictions about your body. It can, for example, it can check your liver efficiency. Is it 100%? Your kidneys, whatever else. And then extrapolate that out and say, well, what is the rate of decline? I mean, now we're getting into statistics, which can, of course, also predict a time of death or when it will all give out and, quit working properly. Well, there's a scientific article called Using Sequences of Life Events to Predict Human Lives, published in the Nature Computational Science magazine. Here, the researchers have they've analyzed health data and attachment to the labor market for 6 million Danes in this model dubbed Life to Vec. And this model's been trained in the initial phase. It learned patterns, and it's been shown to outperform other advanced neural networks and predict outcomes such as personality and time of death with high accuracy. So here's another profession that's going away. Palm readers, psychics. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them up in Sedona. I wonder what all those palm readers and psychics are going to do.
They're going to have to go into technology now,
yeah,
and begin writing code for this type of AI endeavor. So anyway, they continue. They say, we use the model to address the fundamental question, to what extent can we predict events in your future based on conditions and events in your past? Scientifically, what is exciting for us, they say, is not so much the prediction itself, but the aspects of data that enable the model to provide such precise answers. Now, of course, we're going to hope here that as AI becomes involved in making these types of predictions, that it's also going to do some analysis and say, you know what? If you change this particular aspect of your life, in other words, ate fast food only 3 times per week rather than 22, your life expectancy now would increase by X amount. And that's quite in the realm of statistical analysis.
Yeah, I'd be interested in something to help out with people who are adopted. Like personally, I'm adopted, so I can't go back through my family tree and be like, "Hey, I wonder if this guy had kidney problems or if this guy had a liver
Right.
issue or Alzheimer's runs in my family tree." But something with like this, technology and Neuralink implant would, I think, definitely help you out with, finding out what's going on and maybe predict your history, for you without having to do a Ancestry 21 or something, or trying to deep dive through
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen Rose, he says, oh, we've already done that. Never mind. All right. So continuing here, we're going to talk about fusion now. They say that for the better part of a century now, astronomers and physicists are familiar with the process called thermonuclear fusion, which keeps the sun and stars shining for millions, even billions of years. And ever since the first discovery of this energy source, they've dreamed of harnessing that energy, bringing it to Earth, and using it to power the modern world. It's a dream that's become more compelling today in the age of escalating climate change. We've got to get rid of the carbonization that we're undergoing on this planet, pumping CO2 and carbon into the atmosphere. They say that harnessing thermonuclear fusion and feeding it into the world's electric grids could help make all our carbon dioxide spewing coal and gas-fired plants a distant memory. Fusion power plants could offer zero carbon electricity that flows, now get this, both day and night, unlike solar, which is only going to flow during when the sun's out, right? With no worries about wind or weather, and without the drawbacks of today's nuclear fission plants, such as potentially catastrophic meltdowns and radioactive waste that has to be isolated for thousands of centuries. In fact, they say fusion is the exact opposite of fission. Instead of splitting heavy elements such as uranium into lighter atoms, fusion generates energy by merging various isotopes of light elements such as hydrogen and heavier atoms. Now, they say to make this dream a reality, fusion scientists must ignite fusion here on the ground, but without access to the crushing levels of gravity that accomplish this feat at the core of the sun. That's what contains all of this energy. Now, doing it on Earth means putting those light isotopes into a reactor and finding a way to heat them to hundreds of millions of degrees centigrade, turning them into ionized plasma, akin to the insides of a lightning bolt, only hotter and harder to control. And it means that finding a way to control that lightning, usually with some kind of magnetic field that will grab the plasma and hold it tight while it writhes and writhes. Yes, and twists and tries to escape like a living thing. Jesse, you had some recent articles. Are you at a point where you can talk about the fission or the fusion headlines or the progress that's been made?
I don't know the headline. I just know that they peer reviewed it. So the thing that happened a couple of years ago, they were able to replicate it in a lab for fusion. So, I mean, they've proven that it's real. That's basically it.
And what happened in the lab was a major turning point in that what came out of the process was more than was put into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think double now is what they've achieved.
So we're talking, and another word for that is perpetual motion. So they go on in this article. They say that novel technologies such as high-temperature superconductors are promising to make fusion reactors smaller, simpler, cheaper, and more efficient than once seemed possible. And better still, all those decades of slow, dogged progress seems to have passed the tipping point, with fusion researchers now experienced enough to design plasma experiments that work pretty much as predicted. They say there's a coming of age of technological capability that now matches up with the challenge of this quest, according to Michel Binderbauer, CEO of the fusion firm TAE Technologies in Southern California. There are apparently 40 commercial fusion firms now that have been launched since TAE first became a thing in 1998, most of them within the last 5 years, and many with a power reactor design that they hope will have that they'll have operating in the next decade or so. All right. Interesting concept. They say that none of this activity, this research activity, has gone unnoticed by private investment firms, which have backed the fusion startups with some $6 billion and counting currently. And that's probably a drop in the bucket compared to what it's going to take to make this a reality. So it's going to be new technology and private money, creates a happy synergy, and we're going to be able to shed a lot of these energy-creating methods that we have that are really damaging the planet. We had talked about fusion being inserted into the propulsion methods that we have, airplanes, cars, or anything that actually needs energy to operate. Well, I've got some interesting quotes for you. Starlink, all right? The importance of Starlink overall as a company is imperative, according to Brent Prokosh. He says Euroconsult estimates that optimistically by the end of 2023, that was last year, guys, this business of Starlink could represent upwards of 40% of SpaceX's overall business. This total would be somewhere in excess of $3 billion generated just from Starlink alone. Got a few comments coming in here. TikTok, Cody, have you ever had to work on a Lucid Air? We had one visit Gruber Motor Company about summer of last year, I think it was, and we were very impressed with it. What happens with these new release cars is they're under warranty. And heaven forbid that someone actually works on it because that could void warranty. So we won't get to see that level of technology unless it's a collision damage car that is not allowed at the service centers, or there is a modification requested from the customer that this car doesn't already have. You know, automatic opening and closing frunk, for example, upgraded suspension systems. We get a share of that type of activity. Stephen Rose says, it would be great if Tesla could use AI to predict battery failure depending on driving habits. Yeah, we're doing it with humans now. Why not do it with the cars? Charging percentages, he mentions, and how far one drives before charging, etc. You know, I suspect the technology is there, but the application need has not yet been proven as something viable. Crunch to Grace Hopper says, X booted me, so back to YouTube. He tried, so we're having problems with Twitter, X? Okay, we're working on it. Catching up from Newport Beach. Thanks for joining us, Crunch.
Both of our X streams are fine. He just got kicked out.
Oh, it was just his personal. Okay. So X is live, it looks like. All right, so here's another one, and this is from Elon, something that he posted on Twitter. He says, no terminals from Gaza have attempted to communicate with our constellation. That was a new term for me. You know, constellation, stars, you know, universe. His satellites are really a constellation, are they not? He says SpaceX will support communication links with internationally recognized aid organizations. And if you remember, there was another issue, and I'm going to jump to that here, last year, where it was attempted to be used in Ukraine for the war effort. And let's see if I can find that here for you. There we go. Okay. Now he says, there was an emergency request from government authorities, Ukrainian, of course, to activate Starlink all the way to Sevastopol. The obvious intent being to sink most of the Russian fleet at anchor. And if you remember, that was thwarted by Starlink, and they did not allow that to take place. All right. Here's another quote from Brent Prokosh. He says, this growth is uncharacteristic, talking about the proliferation of Starlink satellites in the sense of its magnitude. Whereas prior satellite service providers have ramped up to anywhere at most between 500,000 to a little bit over 1 million subscribers. And this has taken 10 years to get to 1 million subscribers. Starlink's race to 2 million subscribers has taken only the better part of 2 years. And then Elon posted, I'm sorry, we already read that. Here we go. It's not some huge threat to telcos, Starlink, of course. I want to be super clear. It is not. In fact, it will be helpful to telcos because Starlink will serve the hardest to serve customers that telcos otherwise have trouble dealing with. By telcos, he means landlines, domestic, for example, boats. Starlink is an ideal method of bringing internet to boats. In fact, Elon and company are now offering that free, a free subscription for the first month or 3 or something like that. And of course, it's a brilliant move because by the time the carriers and the people managing these cruise ships or whatever they're going to use them on, or transport cargo ships, they're going to realize a major improvement in performance. Why would you then go back to the old method? So 3 months of free service or whatever it is, and Elon has a subscriber base that will rapidly grow. Talks about Ukraine again. The big benefit of Starlink, he says, and how it's being used in Ukraine today is communications. It's providing a pathway for the military, for civilians to stay connected to the outside world. It allows a pathway for the military to communicate with each other and to provide command and control direction to their forces. All right. SpaceX. According to Stephen McGee, SpaceX is destroying professional astronomy. Starlink was not meant to be involved in wars. It was so people can watch Netflix and chill and get online for school and do good, peaceful things, not drone strikes. This is, again, Elon Musk talking about the application of Starlink. According to Setso Maloma, he says one of the most notable innovations of SpaceX is the creation and engineering of reusable rockets. Prior to this innovation, once a rocket was used, it was done with, resulting in significant financial loss. I saw the Chinese are also doing that, the rocket landing now, the booster rockets. So it looks like Elon and company have inspired technology. Here's something else Elon says. When I was a little kid, I was really scared of the dark. Well, most kids are, think about it. But Elon went a step further. He says, but then I came to understand dark just means the absence of photons in the visible wavelength, 400 to 700 nanometers. Then I thought, well, it's really silly to be afraid of a lack of photons. Then I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore after that. Remember, we do shorts over in the fiber production room?
Yeah.
And we talk often about how the type of light that travels on fiber optics, a couple of different methods, single mode and multimode, is beyond the visible human spectrum. It's either 850 nanometers or 1330, and sometimes up to 1500 nanometers, all of which is invisible to the human eye. So 400 to 7 nanometers is what we could see. And if you remember, we got a laser light pen last week, and actually we used that to shine the light through a fiber optic cable, a fiber optic communication cable, and we saw red light coming out the other side on that tiny little 125 micron fiber strand.
Yeah, and if I remember right, wasn't the cable like over 200 feet or something?
Yeah, that was the other remarkable thing, and it was coiled.
Yeah.
So we were actually bending light, which is also cool. There's some physics there, and I used to know this when we built the fiber room, and I needed to be on top of all of this. But light normally does not bend, and with fiber optics, however, the medium is what allows it to bend. Something's coming to me now. What led them to that discovery was if you take a bucket and you drill a hole in the bottom of it and fill it with water, and you shine a light in that, when the water comes out and the light beam, of course, is also visible, it actually follows the water. So it depends on the medium whether it can bend or not.
So it actually travels with the water?
It travels with the water, yes. Any of you interested, if you Google that, you'll see some examples of that. And that's what led to the discovery of fiber optic communication cables, pumping data through the medium of light instead of copper in a magnetic field. All right, continuing here. See what we've got. Any questions? Yeah, we've got a bunch here. Highlander. Welcome, Highlander. He says, fusion. A lot of thumbs up there. Imagine what's going to happen with fusion when we involve AI with it. One can only imagine. That's true. Crunch to Gray says, regarding jobs in the AI world, in 30 to 50 years, in the post-want age, the only job of humans will be to learn how to realize their human potential. Fully agreed. And he says, see Kurzweil's recent interview on singularity. For those of you that are that want to be optimistic regarding AI, we are heading toward a utopian environment with an age of abundance, and these machines and technology are going to take us there. Crunch. He says, once bots can build their replacements, they will soon gain from AI the large language models to repair, improve, and reinvent themselves to take on and even suggest entirely new tasks. Good point. Better ways of doing things. What was it? We were talking about how the robots currently, because they are scheduled to be interacting in our environments, are humanoid, our size, and all that. And there's some pretty cool different types of robots that have been evolving. And of course, it's not new. Even in the last century, there were certain types of robots that worked in certain types of manufacturing plants. Take auto manufacturing, for example. You know, entire bodies of cars clamped into the jaws of a robotic arm that is moving things around, seats being placed inside the cabin by robots on both sides. And they didn't look very human at all. They looked like gigantic swinging arms. By the way, from my family day event at Lucid last weekend, I learned that these robots that are on the production lines can move things around at 7 feet per second. So pretty fast. That's why they keep humans out of that area, because our reaction time is not adequate to stay out of their way. TikTok, Hobie CH. No, it reflects off the inner surfaces, and therefore it comes out the other end. It does not, what's that last word there, Jesse? B-E-N?
Bend.
Bend. Oh, it does not bend. Okay. Reflects off the inner surfaces. Okay, good point. Thank you.
So the photons themselves don't actually bend.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think photons are
Bendable.
really long anyway, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, you know, the other thing we usually talk about when we talk about photons and visible light and things like that is this is a limitation that we currently have because of the type of sensors that we have evolved with. There's nothing that says that we will not be able to expand all of our senses, strength, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing. We already have that with hearing aids, for example, vision, glasses, corrective lenses, which will also eventually go out into the other visible or invisible realms. Infrared, for example. There are already living life forms on the planet that can see well beyond our range of visible spectrum. Looking forward to that. Instagram, MS Diminishad, how to study electric car work. Look at our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and you'll see 1,100 videos, some of which deal with how to do certain types of repairs, what's inside the cars, what kind of problems we find. Some are short videos, some are long-term videos, but it's a good way to get acquainted with the type of activity that takes place in an electric vehicle service center. All right. Well, it looks like we're at 11:09. I've got more quotes if you guys want to continue, or do we do a wrap? I'm going to leave it up to social media here.
Yeah, no, we're way over time.
Way over time. Okay. Next time, we're going to talk about how robots now have performed a laparoscopic surgery. Laparoscopic? Yeah, tough one to pronounce. But anyway, we appreciate everyone joining us on these Wednesday impromptu AI podcasts, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us.